What's up, y'all? My name is Dan. So Qantas has been flying to Europe for a long time. At first, the flight between Sydney and London was a journey of several days via several stops in South Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, with half the trip operated by Qantas and the other half by Imperial Airways, which later became Boeing. Later on, Qantas actually began flying their own planes to Europe, not just to London but also to other destinations such as Frankfurt, Vienna, Paris, Rome, Athens, and others. And throughout the years, the number of stops began reducing to the one-stop flights we have today. Except now, the number of destinations has also dwindled to just one destination, that being London. Most of the market share between Australia and Europe has now been taken over by other rival airlines such as Emirates, Qatar, and Singapore Airlines, with hubs in the middle of the trip that allow for very convenient connections to a lot more destinations than any other airlines could ever offer. For this reason, many European airlines also ended their flights to Australia. They just couldn't compete with the Middle Eastern carriers. British Airways was the only European airline that managed to keep flying to Australia until 2020. This was mainly because of the huge amount of demand between the UK and Australia. This also being the reason why Qantas only flies to London. Nowadays, Qantas flights between Australia and Europe are from the cities of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth through London. Most of these flights make a stop in Singapore where they drop off and pick up a lot of passengers, the only exception being QF9 and QF10 from Melbourne to London via Perth. From Perth, this is a direct flight to London, the third longest flight in the world, and the only direct flight between Europe and Australia. This flight began in 2018. Although right now, because of the pandemic, it's a bit different than usual. These flights from Melbourne and Sydney to London are being flown via Darwin instead of Perth and Singapore because of the restrictions in Singapore and Western Australia. Although Perth to London is set to resume this year, 2022, and flights via Singapore are set to resume in March as well, while the Darwin stopover ends because of this. There's also a new flight that was recently announced between Perth and Rome. As far as I know, this flight is going to begin in Sydney, with a stopover in Perth. It's going to be a seasonal flight that's going to be supported well by Qantas' new partnership with ITA Airways. That would allow for passengers to connect from Rome to other destinations in Italy and Europe. It seems like this flight is going to struggle, but hopefully this flight is going to be successful in the long run. In the future, Qantas plans to order the Airbus A350-1000 ULR as part of Project Sunrise, which is Qantas' ambition to fly directly from the east coast of Australia to London and New York within the next decade. This might open the possibility for more flights than just New York and London, such as direct flights to Frankfurt, Paris, Cape Town, and Rome from Australia's east coast cities. Flights where Qantas passengers would be able to avoid the stopovers at Singapore, Dubai, Doha, and other cities. I'm not really sure if direct flights to Europe would mean the end of the Singapore stopover on European flights. If it stays profitable, then it's probably going to stay. But that's not guaranteed. Unfortunately, though, Project Sunrise is delayed thanks to the pandemic and restrictions on international travel, as well as the weak finances that the airline currently has. It's not yet known when Project Sunrise will move forward. Hopefully soon, though. When it comes to flights from Perth to Europe, I think they're going to stick around, but they'll probably stick to a few destinations where Qantas has closure partners, high demand, or low competition, such as Johannesburg, Amsterdam, London, or the Rome flight that was recently announced. Perth does have the advantage of being closer in distance to Europe, but their disadvantage, though, is that most of the demand and population is in the east coast of Australia. I honestly don't think that these flights are going to affect the Middle Eastern and Southeast Asian carriers. A lot of passengers are probably going to prefer to have a stop anyway. And these airlines offer more direct flights to a lot of smaller European cities that are just too small to have a direct flight with Qantas. So they're going to be fine if they're competitive enough, and I think they are. While there are still restrictions that prevent passengers to fly internationally, once the pandemic ends and restrictions are lifted, travel between Australia and Europe is most likely going to thrive and grow like it was doing before March 2020. So it seems like things are going to turn out really well in the future. Thanks for watching. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. If y'all got any comments, questions, anything, y'all can leave a comment. That's all I got to say, and I'll see y'all later.